Very good morning to all of you who have joined, and thanks for being here. So before we even begin, it's important to call out why we are doing this, why even we did this report, right? Uh, for the fact that we have been doing the startup ecosystem report annually with NASCOM, and there has been a mention about deep tech startups. Deep tech invokes a lot of interest with the audience, with the ecosystem. It's important to understand why we're doing this. We have reached a stage where we have a critical mass, good amount of startups present in India and working on deep tech solutions, and therefore it became important. Second is that there's a strong evidence when we look closely at those startups. We understand that there are some deep tech capabilities that are being developed in India, whether it's research work, whether it's backed by research work at universities or even standalone by startups themselves. Thirdly, it is poised for impact. We not only see that there has been growing adoption across verticals, but there's a potential for impact on economy at large or even at societal challenges. Lastly, it's important to look at India as uh, a deep tech ecosystem, because even though we are third largest startup ecosystem in the world, we may not be called cutting edge when it comes to the core capabilities, but it's important to look at how we have grown so far and how these startups are doing in this area. uh, let's just glance through some of the definitions we have used that's specific to this report. Tech startup is entity which is which has been founded in the last 10 years, that is founded between 2011 to 2021, and it is headquartered in India, or has a large base of its workforce in India, or co-development, co-product development happens in India. Thirdly, we look at innovation, and that it has a innovative business model or has a process that is defined. Lastly, it should be a prototype plus, and not a early stage company. A deep tech startup, on the other end, it's a company which startup which leverages deep tech technologies, advanced technologies like AI, IoT, blockchain, and so on. But also it has unique characteristics, such as whether they are working on a complex problem or they are working at the intersection of technologies, that they're not just leveraging one technology but a combination of these technologies. Thirdly, it is deep tech startups have a higher development cost and product market fit. So they take time to incubate or develop their product, so their gestation period is also higher. Now within this deep tech startup subset, we have classified two set of companies. One is innovative and inventive. Innovative companies are those companies that are turning new solutions or products into something more practical, affordable, and reliable for the customers. And inventive set of companies are those companies which are building something new, net new. Either they are creating new products which are backed by fundamental research, or they have unique intellectual properties. Yeah, so we have about 3,000 deep tech startups in India today, which constitute about 12% of the overall ecosystem. And in the last 10 years, we've seen staggering growth, a cumulative growth about 53% in deep tech startups. And interestingly, about 78% of them are B2B business models or working on a B2B space. In the last year, which is 2021, there were about net 210 company additions in deep tech. On the funding side, we have seen a significant amount of funding, which is about 2.7 billion in 2021. We also saw significant activity in mergers and acquisition space, where about 30 plus deals happened, and about 30% of deals were led by corporates. There's also a talk about a very significant factor, that this companies, the startups are working on convergence of technologies, and about 28% of them are working with either a combination of one or two technologies. And on the inventive side, we have seen that there are about 500 such inventive startups that are building something new, right? And we were testing our hypothesis. We also did a patent and talent analysis, found that about 72% of the companies filed patent, and about 92% of these patents were filed between 2016 to 2021. And on the talent side, right, it was important to understand that what kind of workforce they have deployed in their startups. And it was found that about 30% of these uh, startups have about 50% of more than 50% of deep tech workforce employed. Now, if you look at global landscape of how deep tech ecosystem have grown, right? We largely speak about either United States or Europe. Uh, for the fundamental reason is that these are very close knit ecosystems. So you talk about United States, there's significant amount of investors, universities, and there's a good knowledge sharing ecosystem which is present. When you talk about Europe, it is backed by strong evidence of highly cited publications, and a good amount of percentage of STEM students, right? Uh, so if you remember DeepMind, which was acquired by Google in 2014, it came from Britain, right? And when it comes to Israel, we are talking about something which is very cutting edge in nature, whether in the areas of cybersecurity, semiconductors, or even space technology. India, on the other hand, is poised for impact. As I said, there's a good critical mass at this juncture, and we can see substantial amount of growth in the companies, but also it is important to understand they have a larger impact on economy and societal challenges. China is very bullish on AI, and it has unique uh, deep tech ecosystem. If you see the comparative with the overall tech startup ecosystem, it is growing at par at every aspect, whether it's about share of B2B startups or growth rate of startups or even equity investments. Uh, and Delhi and Bangalore, they continue to be the established startup hubs, deep tech startup hubs in India, largely because of availability of talent and a good amount of investors presence in these regions. And interestingly, if you look at about 35 to 40% of these startups come from regions other than these established hubs, right? And interestingly, there has been growth of about 34% in the emerging hubs. We're talking about cities like Jaipur, Ahmedabad, Indore, Coimbatore, or even Kochi. Over the decade, you see how technologies have grown, right? Artificial intelligence always has been, the most leveraged technology when it comes to overall adoption. And we see this with massive number of startups, that is about 1900 plus of the deep tech startups are leveraging AI. And if that's largely because enterprises are leveraging AI to either solve automation or bring about automation, decision support systems, or even improve their customer experiences. Internet of Things, on the other hand, India is hotspot of IoT deployments, and when it comes to manufacturing, there's huge amount of uh, growth projections, and therefore IoT has also been consistently adopted in these years. Big data analytics, of course, has been pervasive across industries, whether it's predictive analytics or data annotation. There's a lot that is happening across industries, and we see this consistently growing. Blockchain is very in the recent 2-3 years, it has seen massive adoption, especially even if they have low share of blockchain startups, but the growth is still very consistent. AR, VR, we are yet to see some traction, but in the last that COVID has accelerated a lot of use cases that have come up, especially in edtech space or even retail. And when it comes to adoption across verticals, right, we're not just seeing adoption in the many mature sectors such as enterprise, BFSI, but also we see that there's a lot of unique use cases that have come up, especially in environment tech or even aviation maritime. So we're talking about use cases such as environmental intelligence or even UAV for water inspection. My favorite are genomic solutions or even drug discovery platforms. And we have seen substantial growth in these sectors, in the last few years, whether it's BFSI, security and surveillance, largely because of a lot of traction in the image, video analysis, or right. And when it comes to funding, right, this we have seen that the investors have consistently backed these deep tech startups, right? Whether it's total funding, or it's even distribution across the funding stages or even the seed stage funding, right? Total funding, we saw 2x increase in the total investments in 2021 as compared to 2019. And in the funding distribution by stage, if you see, there has been significant investment in the late stage funding. That's something testament to how the ecosystem has grown. And when it comes to investors, we don't not only have homegrown investors, but also global investors that are backing Indian deep tech startups. And across verticals, right, supply chain management, or logistics, health tech, and BFSI, they have largely been, attracted the investments. But we also see the spread very, fair in terms of how the funding has been uh, attracted. The top use cases are largely patient health record analytics, logistics management, AI-based neobanking, or even driver safety monitoring. Uh, Interestingly, agri-tech, which is which witnessed highest growth in investments in 2021. That is about 20x growth in that year. That's something very significant for a sector. And largely, when we talk about adoption, it is, as I said, it is highest across mature verticals. When it comes to enterprise tech, it has the maximum number of share of startup. That is about 870 startups in a vertical, and followed by BFSI, which has about 270 startups, and it also garnered about 400 million of funding in 2021. Health tech, which has been again accelerated because of COVID, is only such vertical which has about 56% of the startups funded for a vertical, which is unique for a vertical. EdTech, again, as the learning become more immersive and technology led, we see that about 175 such startups are working in EdTech space, leveraging deep technologies. Agri-tech, as I mentioned earlier, even though they have the lowest number of startups for a vertical, but it is gaining traction immensely. And we saw, as I said, 20x increase in funding. As I said, we also looked at inventive set of companies, right? And there are about 500 inventive deep tech startups. So we're talking about solutions such as smart fertigation, um, tissue re-engineering, regenerative medicine, or even 3D printing of rocket engines, right? And it is important for us to look at these solutions from a, by building a hypothesis that, these solutions will have higher patents filed, or even they will have more percentage of deep tech roles employed in the companies. And so we did a talent and patent analysis when we were working on this report. And it was interesting to find that about across these technologies, there has been consistently, we saw that there was high percentage of deep tech workforce that was deployed, whether it's drones, robotics, 3D printing, or artificial intelligence, right? And even across verticals, If you see, right, across automotive, industrial manufacturing, and agri-tech, this number was somewhere between 40 to 42%. And in aviation, maritime and defense, security and surveillance, and enterprise, somewhere between 36 to 39%. So we're talking about these roles, such as a blockchain scientist, IoT security specialist, computer vision engineer, robotics engineer, so and so, right? So it kind of we tested up our hypothesis, and it was, a great finding in that regard that these were. When it came to talent analysis, right, about 30% of the companies of the startups have about 50% of deep tech workforce employed as compared to a normal deep tech startup, right? And when it came to patent analysis, right, we found that about 370 plus patents were filed in India. So for patent analysis, we studied about 450 deep tech startups, which had filed about 1,500 patents in either in India or across outside India. Now, the most critical part here is that about 92% of these patents were filed in the period of 2016 and 2021, and they had a share of about 23%, about 300 plus patents that were granted by these deep tech startups. And these patents, we see the solution these startups have built have been adopted across verticals, whether it's enterprise tech, the mature sectors, but also across the new verticals in whether in security surveillance, agri-tech, or even edtech, medical bionics, warehouse automation robots. These were some of the use cases that we found with maximum patents. Now, I was talking about convergence, right? So it's important to look at how these startups are building solutions with more than one technology. And now artificial intelligence has been the most pervasive technology. And if you look at, there are about 550 such startups out of 1900 AI startups that have that have built solution working with a set of combination of technologies. Now, the way you read this is that about 45% of those AI startups have uh, or leverage big data analytics, right? And not only that, we also deep dived into the tech stacks of these technologies. And if you look at the AI stack, very interesting finding when it comes to what is happening across these layers, right? About 52% of AI solutions or products are being developed in the interface layer of it. I'm talking about image, video, or even text processing, right? And we see this in our day-to-day roles that there's a lot of demand for such solutions, whether it's manufacturing or in any other sector, right? And in about 24% of these solutions are being developed in the applications layer, with about 74% of the solution are which are vertical specific. For instance, in health tech, about these are the top three use cases, whether it's patient monitoring, health risk prediction, or even patient engagement, right? Lastly, about 31% of these deep tech AI startups were inventive in nature, with solutions in video analytics, disease diagnosis, or even autonomous vehicles. And we did this study across technologies for big data analytics, IoT, or even blockchain. And if you look at 60% of IoT solutions were being developed in embedded systems, that too in the infrastructure layer. And same for blockchain, about 63% of these solutions are being developed for crypto or NFT use cases. And we also earlier this year we also did survey where we spoke to about 65 deep tech startups, and the survey was built around four main pillars. One was their engagement with corporate Second was about how they are, speaking with academia or working with academia. Third was about talent, and fourth was about the investment. Investment. So if you look at the top two challenges, right, market access and talent have been those two um, bigger challenges for these deep techs, especially for the fact that if you see, about 80% of these startups believe that the deep tech talent comes with huge cost, right? And when it comes to market access, they rank market access to be the most important factor to strengthen this ecosystem or even help them succeed. When it comes to expectations from academia, they're talking about research guidance or access to labs or even product incubation. Expectations from corporate, again, it's huge. They want to find potential customers when if they are engaging with corporates, right? That's about 50% of those companies. Now, not only challenges, right, but if you look at how ecosystem is uh, playing together and enabling this whole ecosystem by supporting and by helping these deep tech startups, they're working at each stage of the startup life cycle, right? Whether it's from exploration to revenue and scale, you see at every stage there's some intervention, whether it's uh, research or incubation that happens at universities or institutions, or even government grants at exploration or RDS stage, right? Across the stage, uh, we have interventions. And the most important part here is that the extended R&D phase of a deep tech startup, right? And hence the ecosystem play comes into very crucial, plays a crucial role in enabling or supporting these startups across each stage. And we have seen this consistently by looking at how various institutes have, supported deep tech startups over the years. And this is evident from the numbers. If you look at any of the institutes, which is again illustrative in nature, but for instance, IISc Bangalore has about 40 plus startups incubated, and in various capacities, whether they provide infrastructure or seed capital or even business mentoring, right? And these solutions that come out of these institutions are very cutting edge in nature. I'm talking about solutions such as a device which helps you monitor your chemotherapy after effects by sitting at home, or even AI enabled electronics stethoscope, right? Cutting edge work being done at these institutions. Now, also, if you look at how the government has supported these startups, they have significantly, helping them across uh, parameters such as technology business incubators. So currently, we have about you know 100 TBIs in India, which are helping uh, uh, which is enabling innovation by engaging with startups, right? Where the support services include whether it's IPR or legal services or even commercialization of R&D activities. But the government has also looked at closely how a roadmap can be built by devising either AI research paper or even a framework for promoting these deep technologies. And there has been support in terms of corporate collaboration as well. If you look at how Department of Science and Technologies has been collaborating with companies like Intel to create initiative to advance research. The larger goal is to promote Indian science and engineering at the highest level, right? And initiatives like NAPSCOM Deep Tech also, they are supporting about 250 plus startups. They are already onboarded and have a larger goal to promote about 1,000 plus deep tech startups by 2025. Now, deep tech startups, as I said, India has huge potential when it comes to um, uh, providing solutions, because deep tech startup will become that part of solution to address the societal challenges. We're talking about SDG goals as well, right? Uh, for instance, poor health, poor soil health, or poor distribution of supply, right, can be solved by automation solutions in either supply chain or even AI-based soil monitoring solutions. And we have strong evidence of startups working in this space. And then same goes for health or good health and well-being, where we have new solutions, especially in teleconsultation or even preventive healthcare, right? And there's a strong evidence of solution here as well. We talk about clean water and sanitation, right? Um Groundwater extraction or AI/ML based treatment of water, where you can manage your water footprint and make it effective management of water, right? And same goes for solutions in clean energy, where we have solar solutions or even AI-based energy monitoring solutions coming up, right? Now, with that, the proactive, even though we say that deep tech startups have reached an inflection point, but there are few measures that we can take to help startups thrive as an ecosystem, right? Number one is that we need more market access and POC led engagements. And this is evident from the research we did, where startups look for POC support or even the market access. And a unique program in this regard would be a welcome step, right? Technology business incubators, on the other hand, even though we have the government-backed incubators, will need uh, niche technology focused incubators, whether they're backed by VCs or even community backed, right? And we require faster commercialization through these incubator programs. Now, thirdly, as I said, capital also plays one of the characteristics that of a deep tech startup is that they have high development costs and therefore require that capital for them to incubate for a longer period of time and to materialize returns, not only returns, but also help them in the development efforts. So therefore, we need thematic funds where we can address some of the vulnerabilities of high risk verticals, and a set percentage of fund can be allocated to deep tech startups. There are investors already who have uh, a specific thesis when it comes to investments, but we need more of them, right? Lastly, as I said, it's important to consider India as ecosystem which is building cutting edge technologies, and therefore a concerted effort is required to build innovation specific clusters, right? For instance, Tel Aviv is known for a particular technology, right? And therefore, in India also, whether it's Bangalore or Delhi, we need to bring about an effort to bring these academia or the ecosystem enablers to deliver compounding returns. So that was a quick one. With that, I'll conclude my presentation, and we can open for Q&A. Yeah, so I see there's a question of how do the founders feel they are getting adequately skilled talent, right? Especially directly from academic institutes. Now, when we did our research, it was found that founders believe in the talent. Founders believe that whatever talent they're getting is adequately skilled, but it's about the number of the volume of the skilled talent, right? So the available talent is skilled enough, but the quantity of the talent is still something that the founders are struggling on. So when there's another one which says that when we are talking about average need that is the deep tech startups need longer time to market, is there an average? uh, there's no average as of now. What we can look at is that some startups take 3-4 years, some takes 5 to 6 years. So there's no specific average, and it all depends on the sector they're working in, right? For instance, if you have built mRNA vaccine, that would have taken a lot of time, right, over the years. It was only COVID that accelerated its growth, but the effort and development was happening over the last 5 to 10 years, right? And it is across verticals, so it varies from vertical to vertical.
So, Vikas, another question that I think we can take up is how AI has been a consistent enabling technologies over the past years, over the past decade, in fact, with use cases which were coming up across sectors. So, what other technologies do you think have the potential to scale to this extent?
So yeah, as I said, blockchain is pretty. We are very bullish on blockchain because of the fact that in the last 3-4 years, we've seen massive amount of new use cases coming up. So if we, I would encourage the audience to go through the main report as well, where we have detailed the use cases. But I'm very bullish on blockchain, though it has regulatory concerns when it comes to crypto or other new use cases. But I'm very bullish on that. Second is there are a lot of evidence. I'll go to a sector which is very you know is of very much interest to me personally. I'm talking about agri-tech, right? Um, so there are a lot of AI use cases. There's a combination of AI plus IoT. We see that happening in precision agriculture, or even global mapping of agriculture, and to create data sets to use data analytics to predict weather, or to do soil forecasting, or even fertigation use cases,
Right.
right? So yeah, and I'm also very bullish on AR VR, and it's an evidence, right? Because COVID has accelerated that very much when it comes to edtech use cases. We'll quickly go through some of the other questions.
So, since we were talking about AR, VR, I saw another question in the chat window where someone has asked, do you see any metaverse use cases that have real business value rather than just experience for employees and so on?
There's evidence, I would say. In India, we haven't seen much traction as of now, but we were doing this a small study earlier this year, and we found that there's strong evidence where some of the new use cases are coming up in metaverse, but we yet to see that traction in India.
So, another question that we can probably take up is how we observe that funding has increased a lot recently. Funding raised by deep tech startups almost became 2x compared to 2019.
Right.
Do you think deep tech startups have the capability to sustain this momentum for the next few years?
Yeah, so I'll talk about this year itself, right? Even though we have data and evidence till 2021, we had a strong Q1 of 2022, that about 0.9 billion of investments already happening, right? And that's a strong evidence. We do see that by end of this year, will if not exceed the numbers, will definitely match the numbers that we have, right?
Right.
And there's a strong evidence because of the fact that there have been a significant funding in seed stages, right? And when it comes to higher gestation period, we'll see that the companies will take some time, at least 3-4 years or even 5 years, to maybe go to a stage where they have a strong product market fit, and they are eligible to further scale, right? And then we'll see the trend from that anchor, by anchoring it to seed stage investments.
There are many questions in the chat window. It's great to see people being so engaged in this session. I definitely feel deep tech is a topic of interest. Now,
yeah. I'll pick one. I think I've seen on my screen. How do you distinguish between a startup and deep tech? So a very fundamental way we look at it is, while defining it, right? A startup is an entity which is either developing a product or a solution through a certain amount of innovation, right? But if you look at deep tech, it is not only innovative in nature, but also leveraging these deep technologies. That the technology becomes a significant part of that company, right? And they have unique characteristics I was talking about, whether they have a complex problem at hand, or they have high development cost, or even they're leveraging more than one technology, right? Yeah, quality of manpower, as you said, I think already spoke about. So there's is a evidence of strong talent and skilled talent, but when it comes to the the volume of it, we are yet to see that. Maybe in a couple of years we'll see that increase, right? So for example, deep the core deep tech roles, research scientists or blockchain developers. So these are some blockchain developers or AI designers, right? These are some of the new roles that have emerged. Research scientists were still there, right, in the universities or even in the labs. But if you talk about new roles like AI designer, blockchain developer, these are some new roles that have come up in the recent past. So we yet to see that growth in numbers.
Right. So there was one more question that we saw in the chat window. So this is from someone from the banking sector. So they mentioned that we touched upon the hunger for digitization and the benefits businesses are experiencing from that. While the importance of personal touch can never be underestimated, digitization has come to be the mainstay of the way people look at banks now. So, how do you think we can strike this right balance between high touch, personalized services and low touch, automated interactions seamlessly?
I think it will be a combination of both personalized solutions as well as the in-person touch. They are here to stay, right? It will be a combination of both. I don't see everything going fully automated in this space, because we're still are not very used to automated solutions, especially when it comes to banking. We are okay. For instance, a chat bot can also can help you solve some of your queries. But if you want to, maybe have specific query, you want to have that personal touch, right? That's a very basic element there, right? But on in banking, finance, services sector, right, vertical, uh, the change is evident. I'm saying that because we have seen a growing number of, because of traction in decentralized finance and crypto marketplaces, that change is evident. There's a shift from traditional solutions to these new solutions, new banking, whatever use case we're talking about. But I see a combination of both is here to stay in the long run.
So,
I see a lot of
how is
questions.
deep tech doing in the social infra and smart city domains?
Yeah, so I'll take it IoT's instance here, right? Because we are very bullish on manufacturing sector in India. We have been consistently growing, at a consistent rate, and the strong evidence is in the growing popularity, whether it's smart cities or even smart solutions in industries, factories, talking about predictive analytics, about digital twin solution, right? Uh, so yeah, I mean, there's a very strong evidence there. Can you repeat your question? I didn't get what was that.
So, how is deep tech doing in social infra and smart city solution domains?
Yeah, so as I said, in smart city space, we see this a growing evidence of use cases in IoT and predictive analytics, right? On social infra, we are yet to reach a stage. I mean, I can comment on that because we haven't seen any strong evidence there. But in smart cities, we have a good growth. Yeah.
Got it. Hey, Vikalp, we have been hearing about deep tech startup for a long time, and it's good that, a report has come up, and the place where we are right now, where we say that, we have 3,000 plus startups in deep tech. Wanted to understand two things. A, how you are looking India is shaping for deep tech. For example, in the next coming 6 months, a year, are you seeing the trend that it will go up exponentially? And if you can say, what are some of the challenges, what you see the deep tech startups are going to face in the near future, and is India as an ecosystem ready to overcome that?
Yeah, so we are poised for growth and impact both, right? The growth, we see that this uh, growing trend across verticals, across technologies, and over the years. So we have that data to comment on that it is poised for growth and impact. Sorry, growth is what I mentioned about, that we have evidence on traction in verticals across technologies and over the years. When it comes to impact, right, it has a large impact on the economy, right? A potential impact. I'm talking about the flywheel effects. For instance, there was a company. I don't want to, maybe just to hide the name, but it has about 2,500 employees. A deep tech large company, and from that company, we further saw about 6 to 7 companies, spun up by founders either leaving that company and starting their own. So there's a strong, linkage to that, where more number of entrepreneurs are coming in the space to build something new, and they find exciting to solve for, and therefore the effects on economy, right? Uh, so yeah, I mean, it is very, when it comes to addressing the challenges, we do have the challenges. That's something we acknowledge today, right? And it is across the board, whether it's investments, whether it's creating a new product, finding the market is one of the biggest challenges for these startups. Uh, I think it's all goes down to how the ecosystem plays that role in nurturing these startups, right? We'll continue to see that momentum happening, where the solutions are built in the institutes, right? For instance, recently I was talking about 3D printing of rocket engines, right? That company has spun out of institute uh, in India, right? And recently they launched this product where they have this rocket engine prepared by 3D printing. So we will see the evidence. It's going to be there, right? When it comes to investors, there are startup funds in India, deep tech funds, which have their own thesis, right? They know that the investments will only materialize over the years, maybe 7 to 8 years. They are okay with that, and I think if that's a very strong and positive signal, that if they're okay with with delayed returns, nothing like that, right? And same is with corporates. And in India, we see constant in the last 5 to 6 years, not just because there have been various corporate programs that have emerged, but innovation as activity, as a process, has also evolved. It is concept for some, it is a process for many, and an activity for so many, right? So that is happening, and they are doing it by collaborating with deep tech startups. There are various use cases in AI, especially, and that are impacting their businesses, right? And various POCs happening, where uh, they work on a project for a couple of months, and then finally see what is the commercial viability for the future. So we are very, and this is across these parameters. But as I was mentioning about survey, which is crafted on 4 fundamental levers, and all these improvements, or the progress we see is across these 4 parameters.
And Vikalp, based on the report and the interviews that you have taken, which are the sectors that you think will grow in deep tech, and which we should look forward to?
So as I said, enterprise tech will still remain, the most vertical which adopts deep tech at large, because of the fact that it is across industries that enterprises are building for other enterprises, and therefore the solutions that we've seen are not across automation, not only about that, but also solving for customer experience or building decision support systems, analytics, uh, image video processing, right? So enterprise tech will continue to adopt deep tech, but there's a strong evidence when it comes to uh, uh, sectors like agri-tech or ed tech, right?
Mhm.
We'll see that in the coming years.
So, in the interest of time, we'd like to just take one more question for this session. So, we have seen how, sometimes all these inventive deep tech startups, especially who are filing for patents and all, it can take a long time for them to get their IP and patents in place. So, what role can the ecosystem play in helping these startups? What role can academia or government play to help these startups with this patent filing process?
Yeah, so there are two ways to look at this. One is right. One is it's an individual call whether to file for the patent or not. There are very core tech startups that are working in deep tech, but have not filed patents, right? Uh, and it's not just, it's like uh, a typical classical static, you know, where we say that the correlation does not imply causation, right? So even though some of these startups are working on a cutting edge space, they may not have filed patents. But on the other hand, when it comes to support, to your question, right? We have already seen that that's already happening with these institutions, helping these startups file patents, whether in India or outside India. And then there are various platforms we have today that enable this and support in commercialization, right from filing patent to even commercialization of the idea, right? So we have enough support on ground today.
Okay, that's great. So with this question, our session comes to an end. Thank you, Vikalp, for taking us to the report and for answering all our questions. It was a really insightful session, and it's thrilling to see what Indian deep tech startups have achieved so far and the potential they have to create an impact on India. We do anticipate 2022 to be a great year for deep tech startups as they continue this momentum that they have established. We will continue to see an increase in funding or at least reach the benchmark that we have already set. And as use cases are becoming more mainstream, we are expecting to see deep tech startups sprouting across sectors. Areas like agri-tech, Web3, and Industry 4.0 will hopefully gain more traction in the coming years. Thank you to all the audience members for staying with us for this past hour to learn more about this year in review. In case you would like to schedule a conversation with the Zinnov team to know more about how we can partner with you, feel free to write to us. Thank you once again and wishing you all a great rest of the day.